Graffham Common Nature Reserve. It's a beautiful Sussex Wildlife Trust nature reserve in West Sussex. As you can see, it's Heathland. When we first got it about 10 years ago, it was pine plantation that we've been restoring back to Heathland. We were really excited to get it because it's a key location in the green sand heaths that run all the way from Pulborough all the way up into North Hampshire, and particularly lowland heathlands have really been declining in Sussex, and we've lost something like about 80% of our heathlands, and the UK as a whole has 20% of the world's resources of lowland heathlands, so it's actually much rarer than rainforest, and they've become, with the loss of them to housing, to pine plantation, to agriculture, they've become really fragmented, and that makes all the wildlife that lives on them really vulnerable. So, you know, we were happy to get this. It connects really nicely with the neighbouring heathlands, and so we've taken down about 70% of those conifer trees. Obviously, we didn't want to get rid of all of them. And so far, this is the result of the beautiful nature reserve of Graffham Common. So heathlands are a landscape, a habitat that's got to be managed by people. For hundreds of years, the two have developed together through centuries and centuries of involvement of man's activities on the heathland. So some of the rarest species really depend on that management for their habitat. So species like the silver-studded blue butterfly, they need some low, new, young-growing heathers like this bell heather here to lay their eggs on and for their young to feed on, the caterpillars. And then they need lots of nectar all around for the adults to feed on. So to create that, we mow different patches and take away the cuttings. We do scrapes sometimes and take it right back to the soil and start it right back at the beginning. And we leave older patches as well nearby. We graze here as well, and that actually creates a really nice intimate mosaic of habitats, and you get as you can see here, you get patches where it's tightly grazed and patches where it's a bit longer as well, and that's really fantastic for the silver-studded blue butterfly.
The silver-studded blue is one of Britain's rarest butterflies. Although if you visit a West Sussex heathland in June, you may think it's one of our commonest species. Silver-studded blues are heathland specialists. They thrive here because their caterpillars feed on heather. The butterfly is named for the silver studs on the underside of their wings, although the populations in West Sussex don't seem to have too many studs. You can see the silver studs here on the female of a mating pair photographed at Reserve Common.
So bare ground is one of the most important components of heathlands, which sounds really odd, but about 60% of the species on heathlands depend on bare ground at some point in their lifestyle. The fantastic woodlark, which depends on heathlands, is an insect feeder, so it's really important to have lots of insects, and apart from all the insects that feed on the heather, there's a lot that really depend on this bare ground, things like digger wasps and spiders and ants, and a lot of the bees and wasps, solitary bees and wasps, make their homes in the sand. So each year we try and create some more bare ground as part of the mosaic, part of the habitat of the heathland. Lots of different ways of doing that. The cattle do some bare ground creation by walking around the site, but also we'll take a turf stripper in, or perhaps a digger, to take that top layer of heather turf or grassland turf off to get back down to the sandy soils.
As the heathlands come alive after the winter, one of the first birds to sing in the spring is the woodlark. Woodlarks start breeding in March and lay their eggs in a nest on the ground, so it's important to make sure dogs are kept on a lead to prevent their nests from being disturbed. Its scientific name is Lulula, and Lulula 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 is just what its song sounds like.
If we just left Heathlands alone and didn't do any management on them, what would happen is naturally they would just gradually get more and more wooded, and we would lose all the special heathland habitat. And so one of the major jobs that we have to do on the heathland is keeping on top of the trees and scrub that try and colonise the heathlands. So this is birch here, and little pine trees and things start coming up quite quickly. So we have a job of cutting them down and removing them to keep that open heathland. And you might ask the question, well, why do we need to do that? Why has heathland happened? Surely it happened without humans. But for hundreds of years, commoners have been coming and collecting firewood and grazing their animals and putting their pigs out and other livestock, and even cutting bracken and using that for animal bedding. So heathlands are really intricately linked with human activity. So we're really, as wildlife managers, really trying to do what hundreds of commoners have done for hundreds of years, really. So and one of the species that will benefit from this is the nightjar, because they nest on the ground rather than a tree, which is quite unusual for birds. We've got to make sure that there is, some open areas, but with enough cover from the tall heather and tufts of grass for the nightjars to nest.
Nightjars spend the winter in West Africa and fly back to England each year, arriving in the spring. These birds spend their day on the ground. Their camouflage makes them almost invisible on the heathland floor. They are crepuscular, meaning they are most active at dawn and dusk. Stand out on a heath on a calm night as the sun sets, and you'll hear their eerie song.
So here we are at a typical heathland pond. As you can see how black it is, and quite often they've got names like Black Pond or Black Hole because of the colour of them. And these lovely acid pools are a brilliant place to come and see the dragonfly, especially on a lovely sunny day like today.
In some areas of heathland you may find pools of uninviting black water. You may think that nothing could survive in these acidic ponds. But for some species of dragonfly, these ponds are the only place their larvae can survive. The larvae live in these ponds for years, until they emerge as stunning dragonflies and take to the air. These dragonflies provide food for the hobby, a migratory falcon which can be seen hunting over the heaths.
These are really special, beautiful places, and they're really good for dragonflies. But also they're commonly, the water level will go up and down seasonally. So in the winter it might be quite high, but in the summer, as you can see here, the water level's dropped quite a lot. And this zone on the edge here is can be quite important for lots of different types of species that have adapted to that, sometimes being underwater and sometimes being above water. So we've got a couple of edge plants here. You can see this is the soft rush here, this quite tall one. But if you get right down, you can see there's this marsh pennywort. It's a lovely little plant here. And if you look really, really closely, you can see this sort of little carpet of green of mosses and liverworts. And there's actually a really rare liverwort that you only get in this, what we call the drawdown zone, the area that's dry in the summer, called violet crystalwort. So Heathland ponds don't take a massive amount of management, but it is important to make sure that you don't lose the open water. So sometimes we need to take out some of the weeds and some of the overhanging trees. The ponds will gradually want to dry out as part of succession. It will get invaded by vegetation like the rushes and then the trees. It's important to have like a lot of things, have a variety of habitat. So some of the pond is good to be nice and sunny and open, and some for the shade and perching posts there for the dragonflies, and if you're really lucky, a kingfisher maybe coming past.